I was with the ambassador at his residence after we'd spent the day together looking at a number of projects that the embassy was involved with the government of Haiti, examining their preparation for the upcoming hurricane season and determining how we as the military and U.S. Southern Command might be called upon to potentially respond to in the event if they had a hurricane a few months from that time. And literally, we were sitting on his back porch. This earthquake occurred at 4:53 in the afternoon and lasted a little bit less than a minute. And I think both of us felt as we stumbled off his back porch and literally into his backyard, unable to stand because of the violent shaking, that we immediately knew we were fortunate probably to be surviving this incident, much less hearing the collapsing structures from around us, because his residence sat on top of a hill overlooking the city of Port-au-Prince. So it was immediately evident to us that we had just experienced a catastrophe that was going to take thousands of lives. For the next several days, there were continuous aftershocks, and through that night in particular, we could hear every time there was an aftershock, as you would expect, people screaming, because literally there was not any place in the city of Port-au-Prince which had a population of about 3 million, in the country of Haiti only having a population of 9 million, that was not affected by the earthquake. Over 70% of the structures were either completely destroyed or significantly damaged. 15 of 17 ministry buildings were completely destroyed. The presidential palace was destroyed. Almost every major hospital in the city was either completely destroyed or a significant portion of it. So their capacity to respond to this, what little capacity they had before the earthquake, was eliminated essentially. So it wasn't a question of whether they needed anyone's support. Of course, it was only a question of how quickly the international community, and they were immediately turned to the United States, because they knew that we could provide the most immediate, most rapid response, but they reached out to the entire world.
Could you describe a little bit about the transition from being a kind of spectator and almost victim to then, in effect, being in charge of the entire intervention? How did that happen, and how quickly were you put in charge?
Being the Deputy Commander for U.S. Southern Command and Haiti coming within our area of responsibility, it seemed quite logical to me that I would call up my boss and say, I'm here, I need to stay here, and whatever effort we send to Haiti, I can help organize it. So just communications, I mean, essentially we were trying to operate off of our cell phones, because that was the only thing that we had that we could communicate back to Miami and Washington, D.C. And the president of Haiti, President Preval at the time, actually had to send his minister on by motorcycle to the ambassador's residence to say that he needed help and he wanted the U.S. government to take over the airport and the airways, because that was the lifeline to Haiti. Being on the island of Hispaniola, half of it, their really only link to the outside world directly was their airport. So we knew that we could provide that kind of rapid assistance to get the airport up and operating safely very quickly. So that was our first priority, was to do that. And everyone, to include the ambassador. I mean, the first priority at that point was just from the embassy perspective, was accounting for the American citizens that we had working in the embassy, and the government just trying to take stock of how they were affected and how they could help their own people. So really, through that night, it was, I had one member of my staff, I had 4 members with me. 1 member was killed in the earthquake, 2 were severely injured and had to be evacuated the next morning. So everyone was affected in some way following the earthquake.
How did you do the prioritizing? I mean, did you have people to help advise you on this? Did you have to simply make the call yourself? What was that like?
This wasn't about the U.S. coming to the rescue of Haiti, but this was really about the international community coming to the rescue, the needs of Haiti, working with the United Nations that was already on the ground. And I think what enabled us to do that is a lot on the relationships that we had on a personal level and the relationships that were there institutionally. I mean, the Brazilian general who was leading the UN military mission there, the two of us had met each other 25 years before this and had worked together, I had gone to school in Brazil, he'd come to the United States. So we already had a very close relationship. So it was very easy for us to determine how are we going to work together rather than try to get into a discussion on who's in charge. So it wasn't really about who's in charge, but on how we can achieve a unity of effort here as quickly as possible. Yeah. We immediately made a decision to be totally open and transparent, and we recognize that that isn't always the case when the military is confronted with the media on the battlefield, certainly. But I certainly felt very strongly that in the case of humanitarian disasters, response to disasters, everyone understands that you're facing very difficult circumstances dealing with it. So I wanted our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, Coast Guardsmen, and everyone who were dealing with this crisis for the American people and others to see what they were doing. So we decided to be totally transparent and encourage the media to embed wherever we were at, and we knew that there would be terrible stories shown on the TV because it was terrible death and destruction everywhere, but that the message was today is a very bad day in Haiti, yesterday was worse than today, tomorrow will be a little bit better than today, but it's still a disaster and chaos is still prevailing. But we will make progress, and we could give hope to the Haitian people